Thank you, Brad. It is now my pleasure to introduce you to Pascal Blampain, Executive Director of Matsa Resources. Thank you so much, Pascal.
Morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thanks for the introduction there. Matsa Resources, ASX code MAT. Our target really at the end of the day with regards to our key projects is Lake Kerry, and our aim is to deliver a 1 million ounce resource. That probably hasn't really changed over the course of the last 12 to 18 months, even though the landscape of Matsa has changed, and I'll take you through some of that over the course of the next 15 minutes or so. Usual disclaimer, so our corporate overview, we have 4 directors on board: Paul Poley, myself, Frank Sybil and Andrew Chapman, well versed in the resources space. And we have Managing Director Ratha Kawatsamang in Thailand, looking after our operations there and also maintaining good dialogue with the regulatory authorities to ensure that we can continue our exploration plays in Thailand itself. 553,000 ounces in resource at a shade under 2 grams per tonne. Top 20, around about 55% of the register. We have 358 million shares on issue. Yesterday we closed at 6.3 on the bell. Most of the day was trading around 6.2, and we're around about $22 million market cap depending on the day. You'll see there in terms of the shareholding, we're well represented by BNP Paribas and Deutsches Peloton. Very strong support from Germany and Singapore, and then Paul Poley himself holds 4% of the company, so has quite a lot of skin in the business. As I mentioned, there's been a change in landscape at Matsa, and really driven by 2 key developments over the last probably 4 to 6 months. The first of that is something quite significant for us in terms of a cash injection into the company. We've sold part of the Kerry project to a private company called Linden Gold. And you can see here, wrong way. The project is that outlined in red. So it includes Red October, and it includes the Devon project, which we did some drilling over the course of the last 18 months or so. We developed that into a resource. We did a scoping study, demonstrated that it can make money, and those two key projects are probably very attractive to Linden Gold, who operate the second Fortune project just down there. So $20 million in cash and scrip coming into the company over the course of probably 5 to 6 months. They plan to list, so there'll be an IPO, and once that lists, the bulk of the money is going to come to Matsa. So we sold 314,000 ounces to Linden Gold at a resource, gold resource of $64 per ounce. The upper case in terms of the cash injection is $15.5 million, but more than likely it will be, that's probably what's going to happen with $4.5 million in script. The lower case in the transaction or the agreement is $11 million, but as I said, more than likely what's going to happen is that Linden will after listing, we'll get $4.5 million worth of scrip from them. So we received $1 million in first instalment in December. We've got $1 million coming in 2 transactions during the course of March, $400,000 already obtained and $600,000 due by the end of this month. I expect that in April, late April 28th or so, there'll be a 3rd instalment of $1 million, and then from what we understand at the moment, conditional approval has been obtained by Linden to list from the ASX. They'll just need to submit their prospectus and sort the rest of the listing out. And as I said, we expect that to occur around about mid-May. From there, once that's listed, once it's all sorted, that's when the rest of the transaction will finalise. There is a $5 million deferred payment, but spread over the cost, spread over the production of Devon, and some cash as well once the operation actually commences. So, despite that transaction, we still have over 500,000 ounces at Lake Carey, and that remains our flagship project. 385 square kilometres, and I'll show you where that is there. A table of the resource, as I said, 553. The bulk of that is in the Fortitude deposit, and for those of you who know or are familiar with the Matsa story, Fortitude, we did do 3 trial pits in there in 2018. The ore was shipped to our neighbours Anglo Gold and processed at Sunrise Dam, so we're quite familiar with the ground there, and we've every confidence that project can actually can be fully developed. So as I said, we're still targeting 1 million ounces at Lake Carey. The other significant event, I suppose, is Thailand. For those of you who read the news, recently Kingsgate Consolidated indicated that they were recommencing their operations and had sorted the permitting issues that they had with government authorities. And the other one is Pan Asia, operating in the southern part of Thailand in this, let's see, they're going over there, targeting lithium. Those 2 key events, I suppose, has prompted Matsa to revisit the exploration ground that we had in Thailand. We had still have some tenements up here in the northern part of Thailand, some very, very strong copper projects there associated with the Loei Fold Belt, which is a very strong geological trend through that northern part of Thailand going into going into Lao, and that's where Kingsgate's Chattree mine sit. You'll notice there in terms of the international companies, Kingsgate $368 million market cap, and Pan Asia in around about the 70 to 80 million mark. So we're in good company there. What do these 2 events actually mean for Matsa? I guess one of the key things is about valuation. We've maintained for a fair period of time that we're well and truly undervalued. And if you have a look at that table there, pre the sale, pre-agreement, we had 867,000 ounces in resource, and we had an enterprise value of $27 per ounce, which even then was cheap. Now, as I said before, we sold 314 odd thousand ounces to Linden Gold, and that equates to $64 per ounce, which is a 237% premium on our EV at that time. Now, assuming there's still no change in our share price, and there hasn't really been much of a change between when we announced the sale of the agreement and now, so if we continue that trend, we will have an enterprise value of only $16 per ounce for basically for Lake Carey, and the rest is undervalued completely. So for us, we've certainly got a reason to believe that a significant re-rating is on the cards. We've got significant cash injection coming in. We've had no dilution to shareholders with this type of transaction. We've divested the Red October project, which was clearly demanding a lot of work and a lot of attention from the company, which actually had an impact on the rest of the company in terms of developing and progressing the full strategy. The catalyst, as we see, to improving the share price, obviously, at the end of the day, is going to be about drilling. And that's based on funding, and I see that happening from around about mid-year, obviously, once this transaction is concluded. Lake Carey is going to take the lion's share of our funding or an exploration budget, but we will advance some of the projects in Thailand as well. So that's what the pro forma sheet looks like in terms of the tenement package at Lake Carey. Got Anglo Gold just sitting up here, Granny Smith and Wallaby for goldfields up there. So we've certainly got very good neighbours. In terms of the resources, as I mentioned, we've got 553,000 ounces in resource. We've got a project here called Fortitude North, which I think can rival the Fortitude Gold project, and there's a couple of others along there as well. And basically we've got a major trend that comes through here and goes all the way up into that northern area. Fortitude Gold Mine itself, we've done the scoping study. We've had an upgrade in resource, 489,000 ounces. The scoping study and mining studies indicate that we've got a potential pit there of basically 1 kilometre long at nearly 200 metres deep in many places. A return of $95 million cash surplus based on the $2,400 Aussie price, and a production profile of 132,000 ounces out of that. And we think there's scope to improve that a little bit as well. Lake Carey drilling targets, we've been fairly conscious of what we haven't achieved over the course of the last 2 years or so, and what we need to achieve in terms of developing the strategy. So that there's just a graphical representation of our key targets. In the left-hand corner, we've got a top left-hand corner, we've got the resources that we know of, and then the rest are exploration targets. And you can see there by the size of the bubbles, essentially representing the size of the target that we're chasing. Now, these aren't JORC compliant resources by any means, but they are an indication of what we expect to be able to find through some additional drilling. We've earmarked $4 million or so for Lake Carey. We're targeting the entire exploration pipeline, so through from the more advanced projects up the top of the page, through the less advanced, and the greenfields targeting at the bottom of the page. There's a healthy budget there to ensure that we advance the whole of the pipeline, and essentially that's the aim of that is to deliver the company's strategy on that million ounce target, million ounce resource actually. Fortitude North, that's probably our first focus. That's our strongest area where we have the most information. Last year we gave a bit of an update of what we thought was there based on the existing drilling, based on some geophysics work and that sort of stuff, and we believe that there's anywhere between 380 to 600,000 ounces. So as I said before, I think that this project here can rival Fortitude. Some of the drilling Matsa drilled 8 diamond holes a couple of years back. 7 of those intersected into significant economic type mineralisation, 47 metres at 2.6, we've got 26 metres at 2, and those are from only around about 42 or 58 metres from surface, so fairly shallow. Probably represents supergene type material, so shallow oxide type ore. And then at depth, we've got things like 8 metres at 3, 4 metres at 13, and 17 metres at 3. Those from around about 76 or 106 metres from surface, and that probably represents fresh rock or fresh ore. Fortitude North, just I guess a cartoon of what we think the exploration model looks like. So fairly extensive shear zone, which is a northwesterly trending zone through here, and then some high-grade shoots, typical sort of gold, to Western Australian gold, high-grade shoots trending off to that northwest. So during the course of the last 12 months or so, we haven't been idle, despite the fact that we haven't had much of a budget for drilling. So we've really focused on the basics or the groundwork with regards to soil sampling and geochem sort of work. We've also done a fair bit of ground magnetic surveys to really help fine-tune our targeting in terms of understanding and trying to define where the key structures might lie. So that's been part of the big build-up to drilling over the course of the last 6 months or so. Just a summary of the results from that ground magnetic survey, and you can see here the colours in like the red represent a very strong magnetic response. So this here reflects the main shear trending off to that northwest, and as I said, all the way up to the goldfields area. One of the important bits are the cross-cutting structures down through here that potentially reflect the higher grade shoots within the system. But importantly as well, we've identified here a strong bullseye magnetic anomaly at a prospect called FF1, which is only around about 3 or 4 kilometres north of Fortitude North, and Fortitude itself just sits there. And that bullseye anomaly has never actually been drill tested, so that's pretty high on our radar. I mentioned gold with a focus on, well, it's a gold-focused company, but we've got a lithium twist as well. So I mentioned the projects that we've got in Thailand, the ones centred on the Loei Fold Belt, but recently as well on the western margin of Thailand, there's a very extensive granite belt there, prolific tin belt, historical mining. Most of it's actually all been artisanal mining, so there's been no sort of modern mechanised mining on that front. But there's noted occurrences of lithium through there as well. The British Geological Survey in the 1980s and early 90s mapped that region. They identified lepidolites, so some lithium minerals there at the time, but because lithium wasn't very strong on anyone's radar, that's just a noted occurrence without a lot of additional detail. But we've gone in there and we've reviewed the documentation, and we've actually pegged our ground according to that documentation. Now a company called Pan Asia, as some of you might be familiar with, have done exactly the same sort of thing. And in terms of the copper projects there, as I said before, very strong copper occurrence. We've got things like 54.7% copper in outcropping material. It's good chalcocite. It's what everyone would want to see in their copper profile. At Chang 1, we've got an anomaly of 1.6 by 1.8 by 1.2 kilometres. Basically, that's ready to go and drill as well. And then we have done a little bit of drilling there in 2016 or so, and only 2 holes so far, and the first hole failed to reach the target, and the second hole got 22 metres at 0.55. So certainly for the first hole drilled in that area, that's a good indication that we're in the right spot. So why Thailand? I think it's fairly evident in terms of the geographical setting. If you look at it, you've got India, you've got Japan, you've got China, you've got Malaysia, Korea, you've got all the car manufacturers around there. Great source for copper, lithium, tin, silver, zinc. So we're in the right location for that. Just a quick snapshot of our lithium tenements. So the orange ones are ours, and the green ones are Pan Asia. So you can see we've got some very close neighbours in some areas, and Pan Asia are actually drilling out that Rung Kiet project down to that southern margin of that project. And then I'll just skip that one. The Loei Fold Belt where Kingsgate is, and there's a snapshot of where our tenements lie there as well. So we plan to get there and do a little bit of work, but the bulk of our work's going to be at Lake Carey, where we'll do some drilling, probably starting around about mid-year this year. I'll leave it at that. If anyone's got any questions, we've got a booth here as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Pascal. Corey Nolan, Managing Director of Platina Resources, now joins us. Welcome to the stage, Corey.